All right, let's start with Matlab fundamentals. This is a new lecture, and by fundamentals we really are going to learn quite literally how to type things in correctly and get certain basic operations going, and then to basically control a larger program. That lecture we're going to call programming. So this is basically sort of like fundamental mechanics of this program that you need to know to just like operate in it, just basic input, output, basic plotting, so how do I display results and so forth. Okay. So this is basically the layout of the lecture. We are done with the introduction and linear algebra review, and we're gonna review how to do basic matrix operations in Matlab, because matrices and arrays are a fundamental way to deal with data. Built-in functions, go over some basic built-in functions that are helpful for just day-to-day work in any programming assignment, input and output, and plotting. That's what I mean by fundamentals. So first and foremost, one thing about Matlab, it's actually a programming environment. So it has multiple things that can actually help you work. And so you will see a command window, you will see a window that opens the files on your computer. So there's a browser, there's like multiple things that are laid out there. And there are certain, first thing that you need to know is like, how do I define certain variables that store numbers? That's what we call variables. And how do I operate with them? So basic mathematics. Okay. And also, are there certain helpful things that are already there that I could just use? So I don't want to type pi all the time. You will also hear me refer to it as p, because it's Greek letter p. P or pi, you don't want to type it in all the time. It's something that is constantly used, so maybe have it built in, please. We do. Okay. So there are certain things like that. And then basically, how do we enter matrices and vectors? I already pointed out to that. And certain expressions that manipulate matrices and vectors. We're going to go over that. So let's actually just get going with the very basic thing. We're going to open Matlab. And one thing that is helpful, and that is also going to be in your homework assignment, is storing what you're doing just for later, looking it up later. And there's a function called diary. Now, diary, if I just type in diary, sort of a default behavior mode is to open a diary.txt as in text file that just dumps everything that I do into that text file. Okay, so it's nothing more than a text file. But I could also give it a name, so I'm just gonna say class and today's date. txt is a text file extension. So if you do that, and that actually, you can see that that opens the file under same name. So this is my browser that looks at the current folder. And here you can browse to other folders if you'd like. This is a so-called command window. So it's an interactive window where I type things in and things get evaluated. And you will also see the workspace of variables right here. So whatever I define, it will actually show up here. And I can look up my command history. So that's what I mean by programming environment. It's not just executing what I do. It also has certain helpful features that I constantly use as a program. One helpful feature is if you want to re-execute something, you press arrow up key, and that's going to call the previous command. So it stores something called history. It's quite literally a text file that sits somewhere, and every line is what you entered. And it will just print you that previous line. And you can actually keep going. So this is what I was apparently doing last night. Okay, I was doing something else unrelated to this class. So basically you can just, with the arrow up, you can go to the previous thing. All right, so let's just define a variable. My variable a is equal to 4. Okay. If I just type in 4, 4 is there, it's going to be printed, but there is nothing to it. There's something by default that happens is there's this default variable answer, ANS, that Matlab just stores previous answer. But the moment you type in something else, the answer is changing. It's now 5. And you can actually see it here in the workspace. It shows up as a variable. I don't see, oh, okay, so there is a value, so I need to enlarge the window enough to, actually I'm gonna do this. And that. Why doesn't it, okay, apparently it needs certain width. Here we go. How about that? There we go. So I can actually see that it has value 5. So for regular small numbers, you're going to be able to see the value. For a very long vector, you might not be able to. So this is your kind of inspection, what's happening and what do you have in memory. Now, if I actually wanted to use it in an expression, I would have to give it a name, and therefore I'm going to define a variable named a. And then I can do work with a. I can say a plus 10. Is 15, no surprise there. Or I can do a squared. Okay, that's 25. Okay, and I can do any kind of operations that I feel like I can do 10 to a, and that is 100,000. Okay. So those are basic variables. And again, there are certain built-ins, so there's p, okay, which is 3.14 and so forth. There's more to it than it's displayed here. And there are certain things that are kind of built in, even if they're mathematically not defined. So for instance, I know that I cannot divide by 0. If I attempt to, Matlab will say, well, that's infinity. So infinity is just sort of an expression. Can't really work much with infinity. I don't know, what is infinity divided by 5? I don't know what Matlab does in that case. I guess it's infinity again. So it has certain things that it just has built in, but in itself, infinity is not a number. If I do 0 by 0, mathematically it's not a number. It's not even infinity. Infinity is actually a mathematical concept that I can work with. And mathematically, infinity plus infinity is infinity. Not a number I can't really work with. And 0 by 0 is one of those. Okay, so anytime it cannot compute something, Matlab will actually place not a number flag in there that you have to be careful with. All right, so now we will move on to vectors in matrices, and those are some things, those are certain things that we have already defined. I can actually go up and do everything. I'm just going to be careful that I have gone over things. Okay, so we will define a number of different vectors, and there's a row vector versus a column vector. We're going to try those out. Okay, we're going to do transpose. This is really a review of what I already did, and then we will actually go over certain rules of what can be done with naming, or what shouldn't be done with naming, and finally just certain built-in functions that will just give me a matrix. So let's go over that in actual